Can you truly heal if your peace still depends on another person? Some pain becomes gentler when it is heard, but there are also depths within the soul that no one can enter on your behalf. Others can stay beside you, offer advice, give you an embrace, or show you a new perspective. But transformation only begins when you are honest enough to look at what is happening within and stop placing that responsibility in someone else's hands. According to Carl Jung, healing does not mean separating yourself from love or refusing help. It is the process of reclaiming the inner center you once placed in the hands of others. When you need someone to remain constantly present in order to feel safe, need them to change so that you can be at peace, or need their approval to believe that you have value, the wound is still quietly guiding your life. Self-healing begins when you learn to stay with your emotions, listen to what the unconscious is trying to say, and become a steady presence for yourself. This video will take you back to the deepest place in that journey, the place where your peace is no longer determined by who arrives or who leaves. Through the perspective of Carl Jung, you will understand that not depending on anyone does not mean living in isolation. It means being able to love and connect without losing yourself. If you stay until the end, you may realize that the deepest healing does not come when someone enters your life, but on the day you become brave enough to be the place of peace you have been searching for all along. Number 1. Why you are still waiting for someone to heal you. If you look back carefully, you may realize that you are not only waiting for someone to love you, you are also waiting for them to quiet the anxiety within you, fill the emptiness, and keep old wounds from returning in silence. This waiting is often so subtle that we do not call it dependence. We simply believe that if we meet the right person, if we are heard deeply enough and accompanied long enough, we will eventually find peace. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls." Jung did not believe that people were weak simply because they needed others. He saw something more subtle. Sometimes what we are truly looking for is not help, but a way around having to face the unfinished parts of ourselves. Hoping that someone will make the pain disappear is always more comforting than admitting that the wound is still alive within us, still influencing how we feel, what we choose, and how we perceive our own worth. I am reminded of a friend of mine named Helen. She was gentle, thoughtful, and always tried not to disappoint anyone. In relationships, Helen often gave in far more than necessary. She rarely expressed what made her unhappy because, deep inside, she feared that if she became even slightly difficult or asked for a little more, the other person would gradually pull away. Yet no matter how hard she tried to keep everything peaceful, a delayed message, a postponed meeting, or a voice that suddenly sounded colder could leave her anxious for the entire day. Helen once said that all she wanted was someone who would always make her feel safe. But after the same anxiety returned again and again, she gradually realized that the feeling had not begun with the person standing in front of her. From childhood, Helen had learned to observe the moods of the adults around her, so she would know when to speak, when to remain silent, and when her emotions might be welcomed. As an adult, she continued to look outside herself to determine whether she was allowed to feel peaceful inside. She was not only waiting for someone to love her, she was also waiting for them to confirm that she was not a burden, that she was not about to be abandoned, and that she was still valuable enough to be kept close. From Jung's perspective, early experiences do not disappear simply because we have grown older. They can retreat into the unconscious and become hidden patterns that quietly guide our reactions. A child who only felt safe when the adults around them were gentle may become an adult who is extremely sensitive to emotional distance. Someone who has to behave perfectly in order to be loved may grow up believing that, to be kept, they must always be pleasant and must never have too many needs. When these beliefs remain unrecognized, we are not merely looking for a relationship. Unconsciously, we are searching for someone who can rewrite the old story. We hope they will always be present, so we no longer fear abandonment, always understand us, so we no longer feel invisible, and always validate us, so we no longer doubt our worth. On the surface, this is a desire to be loved. But at a deeper level, the other person has gradually become the condition upon which our sense of safety depends. We imagine that we are seeking healing, but sometimes what we truly want is simply not to be alone with our pain. Staying with our emotions has never been easy. It forces us to see the fears, emptiness, and unanswered questions that have long been covered by advice, attention, or the presence of another person. When someone is beside us, we temporarily feel lighter. But that relief does not mean that what lies within has been transformed. Imagine someone who always walks through the rain beneath an umbrella held by another person. Whenever someone is beside them, they feel protected. But because they have never learned to hold the umbrella themselves, the moment the other person leaves, the rain immediately becomes terrifying. The problem is not the weather, nor is it the person who once sheltered them. What makes them feel powerless is that, for so long, they have grown accustomed to standing beneath someone else's protection, and forgotten that their own hands are capable of doing the same. That is why many people carry the same anxiety through different encounters. They continue hoping that this time, someone will be understanding enough, stable enough, and patient enough to lead them out of the darkness. But when peace rests entirely upon another person's presence, it will also fluctuate with them. When they become busy, we become anxious. When they change, we panic. When they leave, our inner world immediately loses its foundation. It is not because they have taken our peace away, but because long before that moment, we had unconsciously placed it in their hands. Jung did not deny the value of companionship. A sincere friend, a healthy relationship, or a good therapist can help us see what we have not yet been able to recognize on our own. But no one can live another person's inner life for them. They can remain beside you while you are in pain, offer a different perspective, and help you feel less alone. But they cannot enter your unconscious and complete the work you are still not ready to touch. We continue waiting for someone to heal us, not necessarily because we are weak, but because we once learned that peace had to be brought to us by another hand. As long as that belief continues to guide us silently, every new encounter can carry the same old expectation, the hope that someone will make us stop being afraid, stop doubting, and stop having to face the most painful places within ourselves. If this section has made you realize that you may once have placed too much hope in another person, pause for a moment and look deeply at what you are still silently waiting for. Do not do this to blame yourself for having been vulnerable, but to understand why your peace once depended so easily on another person's presence, words, or choices. And if you feel ready, you may share a few lines in the comments about what you have been waiting for someone else to do for far too long. Sometimes, simply naming it correctly is the moment the true journey of healing begins. Number 2, the door within can only be opened by you. When you stop waiting for someone else to make the pain disappear, you begin to understand the limits of every form of companionship more clearly. Someone may listen, help you see what you have not yet recognized, and remain beside you through uncertain days. But they cannot return to the memories you continue to avoid, name the emotions you once denied, or choose differently for you when an old pattern appears again. There will always be a part of the journey that each person must walk through alone, not because healing is meant to be lonely, but because transformation only becomes sustainable when it begins within. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no birth of consciousness without pain." Consciousness does not emerge simply because we have heard the right advice. It is formed when we become brave enough to recognize the truth that makes us uncomfortable, and then remain with that truth longer than our instinct to escape it. At this point, pain is no longer merely something to eliminate. It becomes a sign that a part of us is asking to be seen, understood, and brought out of the darkness. In Greek mythology, Theseus entered the labyrinth to confront the Minotaur, the monster hidden deep within a place from which no one could find a way out. Ariadne gave him a ball of thread. One end was tied at the entrance, while the other followed Theseus into the darkness. With it, he could find his way back. But Ariadne could not enter the labyrinth for him. She could offer direction, but Theseus was still the one who had to face the monster. Through a Jungian lens, the labyrinth can be seen as the unconscious, where memories, fears, and rejected parts of the personality remain hidden beneath winding passages. The Minotaur does not necessarily represent something evil. It may be the anger you were once taught to suppress, the fear of abandonment you have always concealed, or the belief that you are not good enough, a belief that continues to guide many of your choices in silence. Others may offer you the thread through listening, knowledge, or a new perspective, but they cannot confront that monster for you, because it was formed from your own inner history. This is also how genuine psychotherapy works. A therapist does not live another person's experience for them, nor do they provide a formula that makes every form of pain disappear. They create a safe space, helping the person recognize emotions, see patterns, and understand more clearly what is taking place. But change only begins when that person brings this awareness back into daily life, notices when they are about to react according to an old habit, tolerates the discomfort of choosing differently, and does not immediately return to what is familiar simply because it feels easier. You may be reminded hundreds of times that you have value, but those words only become part of you when you stop remaining in situations that repeatedly make you question that value. You may understand that you have the right to set boundaries, but a boundary only truly exists when you can endure the guilt that appears after the first time you stop giving in. Consciousness may be awakened through words, but it only matures through experiences that you live for yourself. Healing is like a string on a musical instrument. Someone else may adjust its tension, place the instrument in a quiet room, and teach you how to listen, but sound only appears when the string itself begins to vibrate. No one can vibrate the deepest part of you on your behalf. If every change comes only from an outside voice, it will disappear when that person is no longer present. But when something is truly recognized from within, it becomes a form of understanding that external circumstances cannot easily take away. This is why some people read countless books, consume large amounts of healing content, and clearly understand the origins of their wounds, yet their lives continue repeating themselves. They have stood before the labyrinth and held the thread in their hands, but they have still not entered. Knowledge helps you understand where you are. It cannot replace the moment when you choose to live differently from what the unconscious usually urges you to do. Understanding that you fear abandonment is one step. Refusing to abandon your own emotions and needs in order to keep someone is where transformation begins. The door within can only be opened by you, because only you truly know what makes you contract inward. what is being concealed beneath your calm appearance, and what is still quietly demanding to be acknowledged. Others may see the signs, but they cannot feel the full weight of them. Nor can they decide for you when it is time to move through a fear, release an old role, or stop repeating a choice that once helped you survive, but now only carries you farther from yourself. This does not make healing a lonely journey. Ariadne was still essential to Theseus. The thread still helped him return. The right kind of companionship does not take responsibility away from you. It helps you become steady enough to carry that responsibility. Someone who truly loves you does not open the door for you. They remain close enough for you to know that you can open it without having to enter the darkness entirely alone. All you need to do is choose one emotion that frequently returns and spend a few minutes with it each day. Name precisely what is present. Write down the situation that caused it to appear, and observe your first reaction without immediately trying to correct it. Do not ask at once how you can make it disappear. Simply recognize, this is what is happening within me. Each time you do this, you are holding the thread that leads into the labyrinth more firmly, and taking another step toward the place no one else can enter for you. That door does not open through perfect advice or through the arrival of someone who knows every answer. It opens gradually when you stop turning away from what your inner world is trying to show you. From that moment, healing is no longer something you wait to receive. It becomes a real movement that begins from within. Number 3, reclaiming the authority you gave to others. But when the door begins to open, will you trust what you see, or will you still need someone else to confirm that your feelings are valid? This is where the journey becomes more subtle. You may already understand what you need and know what is exhausting you, yet still hesitate until someone agrees with you. Gradually, other people's reactions become the signals you use to decide whether to move forward, stop, or turn back, while your inner voice is only heard when it does not disappoint anyone. A follower of the channel once left a comment sharing that, for many years, she was almost incapable of making an important decision without first asking the people around her. Before changing jobs, she asked her family. Before ending a relationship, she asked her friends. Even when she wanted to spend time alone, she needed to know whether others considered it reasonable. She once believed that she was merely being cautious, but the more opinions she sought, the more directionless she became, because everyone viewed her life through the lens of their own experiences and fears. What awakened her was not a major decision, but the moment she realized that she had chosen a life that made everyone else feel secure while leaving herself increasingly exhausted. She stayed in a job that was considered stable, continued a relationship because the other person had nothing obviously wrong with them, and repeatedly ignored the heaviness inside her because she feared being called ungrateful. She wrote, "I asked other people how I should live for so long that I no longer knew which voice was truly mine." This is how inner authority is usually surrendered. It does not happen in one obvious moment, but through the many times you push your feelings aside to preserve someone else's satisfaction. You know that you do not want something, but you still agree. You feel hurt, but tell yourself that you are being too sensitive. You recognize that something no longer fits, but continue staying because everyone says it is the right choice. After enough moments like these, no one needs to control you directly. Their expectations have already become a voice inside your mind. Carl Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." The reactions that destabilize you do not only reveal how others treat you, they also reveal the places within you where you still do not trust yourself. Someone's disagreement may cause you to completely abandon your choice, not necessarily because they are right, but because you are still afraid of taking responsibility if the path you choose does not produce the result you hoped for. A disappointed look may send you back into an old role because deep down, you still equate being loved with keeping others satisfied. From Jung's perspective, maturity does not mean that you should never listen to anyone again. It is the ability to receive many voices without allowing them to replace your own. You can still ask for opinions, consider advice, and admit that you may be wrong. But after all of that, you must return to your lived experience and ask, does this path bring me closer to the person I want to become, or does it merely make me easier for others to accept? Imagine your life as a boat whose wheel has been touched by too many hands. Your family wants you to avoid rough waters. Society wants you to move quickly. The person you love wants the boat to remain close enough for them to feel secure. Everyone pulls in a different direction, and you try to satisfy them all so that no one will be disappointed. But a boat cannot reach any destination when its course changes constantly. Reclaiming your authority does not mean throwing everyone overboard. It simply means returning to the position of the person steering the boat, listening to the warnings, but deciding for yourself which shore you are moving toward. That moment does not always bring immediate freedom. At first, it may bring guilt. People who are accustomed to being consulted may think you are becoming distant. Those who are used to you yielding may say that you have changed. You may also feel confused because, when you make your own choices, there is no longer anyone else to blame if things do not unfold as you hoped. But this is also where real responsibility begins. Not the responsibility to live perfectly, but the responsibility to live a life in which you are truly present. Reclaiming your authority does not mean defending every choice forever. Sometimes you will realize that you were wrong and need to change direction. The difference is that this time you adjust because you have seen more clearly, not because you are afraid of disappointing someone. You can listen to criticism without turning it into a judgment of your worth. You can feel hurt when misunderstood without immediately betraying what you know is necessary. You can also accept that not everyone who loves you will understand the path you need to take. When inner authority returns, you no longer use every external reaction to measure yourself. Praise may still make you happy, but it no longer determines whether you have value. Rejection may still hurt, but it does not force you to deny your entire being. Approval becomes a gift rather than oxygen. Advice becomes a source of reference rather than a command. And another person's disagreement no longer means that you have taken the wrong path. Gradually, the question, "What will everyone think?" begins to give way to a deeper one. What will happen to me if I continue living against this feeling? Some choices may please others for a day, while carrying you farther from yourself for years. Other decisions may make you feel lonely at first, but give you, perhaps for the first time, the sense that you are no longer standing outside your own life. Thank you for staying with us through the first half of this journey. Before continuing, pause for a few seconds and answer honestly. When was the last time you clearly knew what you wanted, but still chose according to someone else's expectations? If you feel ready, you may share that story in the comments as a way of allowing the voice that was once silenced to finally be heard by you. Sometimes, your inner authority does not return through one dramatic decision, but through the moment you begin trusting that what you feel inside is also worthy of respect. Number 4. Staying with the pain instead of continuing to run away. The moment you begin directing your own life, is often also the moment when emotions that were pushed very deeply beneath the surface begin to become clearer. In the past, you may have kept yourself busy so you would not have to think, found someone to fill the emptiness, or kept moving forward so you would not have to look back at what remained unfinished. But when these methods can no longer cover your inner world, you realize that the pain never truly disappeared. It was simply waiting quietly for the day you became calm enough not to leave again whenever it appeared. People rarely admit that they are running away. We simply work more, scroll through our phones for longer periods, rush into a new relationship, or tell ourselves that the past is over and that we should not allow ourselves to be vulnerable anymore. Some people transform their wounds into an appearance of strength, always presenting themselves as though nothing could ever reach them. These methods may help us continue functioning, but continuing to live does not mean that what lies within has been transformed. Sometimes what exhausts us is not only the wound itself, but the constant effort required to keep it out of sight. In the Bible, there is the story of Jonah. When he was called to go to Nineveh, he boarded a ship traveling in the opposite direction, as though creating enough distance would prevent what he did not want to face from catching up with him. But a violent storm arose at sea. The ship began to sway. The people around him panicked, and Jonah gradually understood that the journey was not truly taking him somewhere safe. It was only carrying him farther away from what he already knew, deep within, he needed to confront. After being thrown into the sea, Jonah was swallowed by a great fish and remained inside it for 3 days and 3 nights. With nowhere left to run, he was placed within complete darkness. Yet the place that appeared to be the end became his first true pause. Without noise and without another direction in which to escape, Jonah began to look at his resistance, his fear, and what had caused him to turn away. Only after this confrontation could he return to the shore and move forward in a different way. Carl Jung once wrote, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." Some pain, when it is not confronted, does not disappear. It merely takes another, less recognizable form. It may become a need for control, constant anxiety, insecurity in relationships, or repetitive reactions that even we do not understand. What needs to be healed, therefore, is not only the outward symptom, but also the wounded part that is still quietly seeking to be seen. Facing your emotions does not mean becoming trapped in the past or treating your wound as the whole of who you are. It simply means no longer denying what is present whenever an uncomfortable feeling arises. Instead of saying, "I should not be sad anymore," you acknowledge that the sadness is still there. Instead of accusing yourself of being too sensitive, you begin exploring why a seemingly small situation reaches you so deeply. Only when emotion is no longer judged does it have the opportunity to reveal what has remained hidden behind it. Scientific perspectives also suggest that avoiding emotions often provides temporary relief, but may reinforce the fear response. Each time an uncomfortable emotion appears and you immediately attempt to make it disappear, the mind gradually learns that the emotion is too dangerous to tolerate. As a result, the next time, even a small sign may cause the body to react more strongly. In contrast, when an emotion is recognized and accurately named within a safe level of experience, the inner reaction may begin to settle because you are learning that you can feel discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. Imagine pain as a letter that was sent a long time ago but has never been opened. You can place it in a drawer, cover it with many other objects, and try to forget that it exists. But the weight does not come only from what is written in the letter. It also comes from constantly having to remember not to touch that drawer by accident. Only when you are calm enough to open the letter can you discover what you have been carrying all these years and what has continued calling your name from behind reactions that seem unrelated. Sadness may show you that you have lost something truly important. Anger may point toward a boundary that was violated. Fear may be trying to protect a part of you that has never felt safe enough. Emotions do not always tell the whole truth about the present, but they often carry a trace that deserves to be heard. Only when you stop rushing to drive them away can you distinguish between what is actually happening now and what is merely the echo of an earlier experience. Change begins within the very small pause between emotion and action. You can recognize that you are afraid of abandonment without immediately clinging to someone. You can notice that you are angry without hurting another person. You can feel emptiness without rushing to fill it with a relationship, work, or endless hours lost on a screen. The pain may still be there, but it no longer has the authority to determine every step you take next. Gradually, you begin to understand that emotions do not appear to punish you. Often, they are simply guiding you back to a part of yourself that was left behind during a moment that was too overwhelming. The part that was once afraid, powerless, or forbidden to feel sadness or anger does not need another judgment. It needs a presence calm enough to show it that this time, when it speaks, it will not be pushed aside again. Staying with pain does not make everything lighter immediately, but it helps you stop living under the direction of what you have always tried to avoid. When you no longer rush to push your feelings down or find something else to fill the emptiness, you begin to see yourself more clearly and remain calmer in the presence of what is happening within. Pain then becomes more than something you must escape. It becomes the place where you learn to remain with yourself during your most vulnerable moments. Number 5. When self-healing helps you love without dependence. At this point, after learning to remain with your pain instead of continuing to run from it, you may realize that healing has also been quietly changing the way you enter love. In the past, you may have turned to someone for reassurance, validation, or to fill the emptiness within. But once you have learned to support yourself, you no longer place upon another person the responsibility of keeping your entire inner world peaceful. You still desire closeness and love, but you no longer believe that without someone, you will be unable to stand. Dependence is often difficult to recognize because it can resemble deep love. You may call constant waiting an act of care, call excessive self-sacrifice devotion, and interpret the fear of losing someone as proof that you love them deeply. But behind these things, there may be a quiet belief that only when you are chosen do you truly have value. That is why a delayed message or a slight change in someone's tone can be enough to make you fear that their affection is beginning to disappear. In everyday life, some people become deeply unsettled whenever the person they love becomes busy. They check their phone repeatedly, reread old conversations, and wonder what they may have done wrong. Because they fear being seen as demanding, they do not express what they truly need. Instead, they try to become gentler, more useful, and less troublesome. On the surface, everything may appear normal, but inside, they are constantly watching the other person's behavior to determine whether they are still loved. Only when the exhaustion becomes impossible to ignore do they begin to look at what is happening within themselves. They realize that the other person's busyness has merely touched a fear that was already there. The fear that distance will always lead to abandonment. From that point, they begin returning to their work, friendships, and joys that had long been neglected. Whenever anxiety arises, they no longer immediately send another message in search of reassurance. The discomfort remains, but they gradually understand that they can move through it without pulling another person closer at any cost. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." A genuine encounter is not a place where one person continuously changes in order to keep the other. It is a place where both people can be seen, face their own limitations, and grow through the relationship together. Love does not only bring comfort, it also brings fears and unconscious parts of ourselves to the surface, parts we often fail to recognize when we are alone. From a Jungian perspective, we sometimes believe we are merely reacting to the person in front of us, while a deeper part of us is actually reacting to the past. A moment of silence in the present can touch a memory that has long been forgotten. A small rejection can bring back the feeling that we are not important enough. Healing begins when you recognize this and stop requiring the person you love to take responsibility for every wound they did not create. Recognition does not mean that you will immediately become calm in every situation. You may still feel sad when the other person becomes distant, disappointed when your needs are not met, and afraid of losing something important. But a pause begins to appear between emotion and action. You can feel anxious without immediately clinging. You can feel hurt without instantly concluding that you are unworthy of love. This pause allows you to respond from the present rather than continue repeating old reactions. Imagine your inner world as a house with its own heating system. When the house cannot keep itself warm, you depend entirely upon the fire another person brings. Each time they leave, the cold immediately enters, causing you to panic and want to keep them there at any cost. But when the house has its own source of warmth, their presence still brings a special kind of comfort. Only now they are no longer responsible for keeping the entire house alive. Self-healing means creating that source of warmth so that love enriches your life rather than becoming the only thing preventing you from falling apart. As you become more stable within, you also give other people the freedom to be ordinary human beings. They may become tired, need time alone, or fail to understand everything you are feeling. This does not mean that you must accept indifference or disrespect. You still know what you need, where your boundaries are, and when it is time to leave something that is no longer healthy. The difference is that you choose from clarity rather than from the terror that you will not survive without them. Loving without dependence does not mean needing no one. You still need connection, understanding, and the feeling that you matter to another person. What changes is that you no longer use their presence as the only proof of your worth. You can lean on them when you are tired, without placing the entire weight of your life upon them. You can love deeply while still preserving your voice, your boundaries, and the important parts of yourself. Tomorrow morning, after you wake, all you need to do is sit quietly for a few minutes and ask yourself, today, do I want to love from sincerity or from the fear of loss? Then choose one small action based on your answer. Perhaps you need to express a need clearly instead of suffering in silence. Stop sending another message merely to soothe your anxiety, or devote time to your work, your body, and the joys that belong to you. Each time you do this, you remind the deepest part of yourself that love can exist alongside closeness without requiring the loss of freedom. Healing does not make you love someone less. It simply helps you love them without continuing to abandon yourself. As we bring this journey to a close, perhaps you now understand that healing yourself does not mean learning to live without needing anyone. Human beings still need love, understanding, and hands that support them when they are tired. What matters is that you no longer hand your entire peace over to another person's presence or choices. Others may accompany you, illuminate the path, and help you see what was once hidden. But the deepest place within still requires you to enter with honesty and patience. Through the perspective of Carl Jung, healing occurs when what was once hidden is gradually brought back into the light of consciousness. You stop blaming yourself for having once been vulnerable. Stop viewing pain as failure and begin listening to what your emotions are trying to say. Inner stability then forms very slowly and without noise. But it becomes strong enough that you no longer lose yourself so easily whenever life changes. Therefore, if everything is still not completely clear today, give yourself